Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, he's here once again. Pop open yourself a can of cold, refreshing Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Well, I'm bubbly and crisp. All you have to do is drink me deeply.
I just don't want to go there. I just don't. Hey guys, listen, this is a surprisingly packed day with, I'm not going to lie, mostly bad news, but some good news too at the same time. We got a whole hell of a lot of stuff to dive into here today. Just want to remind you guys first, though, that if you're here joining us for the show, thanks for being here. And listen, if you haven't done so already, why don't you just take a second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the John Campea Show and the John Campea YouTube channel, keeping you up to date on all the stuff that we got going on here. Here's how today's show is going to go, guys. We've got a bunch of topics that we're going to discuss in advance or right up front for the first half of the show. And then when we get into the second half of the show, we're going to be taking your live comments and questions. Now, how do you get a live comment or question on? It's easy. Just look in the description of this video at the very top. You're going to see a tip link. You can just click on that or enter it in manually here at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Once you guys get there, just fill it out. You'll be doing two things. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here, thank you guys very much for that. Okay. With that down, let's get on to number one off the top. We got a couple of off the tops here to get to. So let's start off with this one. You know, in the midst of a lot of news about movies getting delayed and all this kind of stuff, we are still getting new trailers. Production started back up again on a lot of projects. We had post-production, some movies that were already in the stage of post-production, ready to go and all that sort of stuff. One of the films we've been talking about for a good year now has been the Jessica Chastain-led film, The 355, which is basically about a bunch of international female spies from different countries who band together to fight a common enemy or whatever. And the first trailer for the 355 came out. Now look, before seeing one frame of this, I'm totally on board with this movie. Spy thriller, number one. But from there, Jessica Chastain, Diane Kruger, the future ex-Mrs. Campea Lupita Nyong'o, Penelope Cruz, Bing Bing Fan, who's mostly known in China. She's actually one of the biggest stars in China. She's been in like their top 10 most profitable celebrities for like 10 years over there. For North American audiences, she played Blink in X-Men Days of Future Past. So you line up that lineup. I'm already involved. Spy thriller, what have you. Trailer comes out and it was good. It's a good trailer. I'm not going to say it blew my mind or anything, but it is a spy thriller. It's exactly what I was expecting, which is, they're showing these 5 different women getting together, explaining we have a bigger threat that we have to deal with and all this kind of stuff. I was expecting all that, and it delivered on what I was expecting. And that's good. It was exciting. I love seeing some of my favorite actresses in there. And so we'll wait. I mean, again, I'm excited. It did bop up my enthusiasm and my excitement for the film a little bit. That's what a trailer's supposed to do. So all good. I'm looking forward to it. Not the best trailer of the year, but certainly a solid first outing for a trailer. And I'm looking forward to it. Rob, you had a chance to see this trailer for the 355. What did you make of it?
Well, I think somebody made a movie just for me. I watched that trailer. First of all, I got to give it up for Jessica Chastain, who's been in all of these kinds of movies. I mean, you go back to things like whether it's Zero Dark 30, whether it's Molly's Game. She's just been in a lot of these sort of mid-level adult, whether they're action thrillers or just really interesting, the literary adaptation of Molly's Game. I really like what she's doing with her career. I mean, anything she's in seems to me to be really entertaining, not just because I have a predilection for redheads, but I really do enjoy these films that she's in. And this is something that, I mean, I'm sure she was probably a prime mover in getting this made. And there's been a lot of talk about girl power these days, but I looked at this trailer and I'm just, damn, son. I felt like I wanted to channel my inner John Schnepp and be like, yeah, somebody made this movie. Somebody was thinking of me when they greenlit this project. And I especially want to thank Jessica Chastain. Love her haircut in this one.
Look, I'll tell you right now. I mean, I think it's pretty safe for me to say that I think Jessica Chastain is flat out my favorite actress in the world right now. I'm not going to say all time, but ever since I go back to watching her in Tate Taylor's The Help, I loved that movie passionately. And it was the first movie that I really took notice of Jessica Chastain because I thought she was absolutely fantastic in that. And then you're right. When you look at her and the decisions she has made with her career, she hasn't popped up in a whole bunch of cheap, easy paycheck rom-coms. Not anything wrong. I like a good rom-com as much as anybody, don't get me wrong. But she's really been very focused on what project she chooses to be a part of. And so when something like a Molly's Game comes along, or something like The 355 comes along, I instantly, and Rob, maybe this isn't the smartest thing in the world, I instantly make some very positive assumptions about the project just because Jessica Chastain chose to be a part of it, because she's been so selective in her career. Not that everything she has done has been like Oscar worthy, but it's been really good stuff. Anyway, guys, question for you is, what did you think about the trailer for the 355? I thought it was quite solid. What did you think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into another off the top here, shall we? And in the category of delusions of grandeur, AMC Theaters has come out and said, despite the fact that Regal is going to be shutting down operations temporarily as of this Thursday, AMC is saying that they're going to stay open. Actually, it's not just AMC. Actually, it's also Cinemark is also saying, by the way, that they are going to stay open as well. Now, of course, for you guys who might have missed it, after James Bond, No Time to Die move, and obviously we had Black Widow move, and there's not a lot of big projects left to maybe come out in 2020, and it's going to shrink even more. Regal, completely expectedly, no surprise here, came out and said, Cineworld, Regal, we're going to shut down operations until we've got some movies that are going to bring people out to the theaters. Now, I said I completely expect AMC to follow suit. But AMC came out and they decided to put out a statement that said, nope, we're not going to close down. We're going to stay open. Now, this is a stupid decision, but I can kind of see where they're coming from and where they see a couple of arguments to be made for staying open. For example, why is this a stupid decision? Well, listen, they're already in big financial trouble. The reason Regal is shutting down is to go into conservation mode, right? They want to make sure that they stay viable and stay alive and don't lose tons of money by being open without people coming to theaters. They want to make sure that they're still alive and viable for when the movies start coming back. It's a very smart move on their part. So then why, if it's so smart, why isn't AMC just jumping at the opportunity to do the same thing? Shut its doors, conserve its finances so they can be ready to open back up again. Well, I think there's two arguments to be made why they might be doing this. Argument number one is there ain't much business out there, but with Regal closing the doors, that means what business there is there, more of it will naturally now flow to AMC, right? So there's very, very slim pickings to bring people out to the movie theaters right now. But for people who are going out to the movie theaters to see older movies or going to see Tenet for the third or fourth time, now after Thursday, if you want to go to one of the big movie theaters, Regal's not going to be an option anymore. That might divert some more of the market share that is there over to AMC and also Cinemark and things like that as well. But that's a legitimate thing to look at. I don't think it's a make or break issue, but it's a legitimate thing that does make a little bit of a difference. So AMC can be looking at this and saying, well, hey, you know what? We're going to get a little bit more than we were because Regal's shutting down. That's one way of looking at it. The second thing that could speak to why maybe staying open right now may not be that bad of idea is this. Rob, shutting down an operation And restarting back up an operation is an intensive and expensive procedure, right? I mean, it was not a small thing for AMC to have to shut down all of its theaters. But then when they were getting ready to open up, and I believe it's like 80% of their theaters in North America are open back up, I think at this point.
Yeah.
So Rob, when you look at that and you understand that it took them weeks to get ready, to retrain staff, rehire people because they had to let, they shut the doors initially, rehire, restaff, retrain, get everything ready to go again. Just the starting back up can be a huge endeavor and an expensive endeavor and take a lot of resources. So while at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, this is a dumb decision to stay open. I think this is the wrong decision. Honestly, ever since Jerry Lopez left as the CEO of AMC, I've sat back and watched AMC make one stupid decision after another. I don't think their CEO knows what he's doing. Aaron something or other. The AMC's last CEO was a brilliant dude. And I'm an AMC fan, but I've just been watching AMC make stupid decisions after. I think this is a dumb decision. But it's not the most brain dead decision because, again, I think there are those two arguments that, hey, you might get a little bit more of the market share with Regal closing and you're avoiding. Maybe they believe that a temporary shutdown right now will be shorter than what we think it'll be. Because if they think, hey, you know what, we think we'll be able to open back up in December, even if we close down right now, well, then maybe it's not such a dumb idea to keep the lights on and keep it open. Yeah, you're losing money, but you don't have to go through that huge, labor-intensive restart-up process. There's an argument to be made. Again, I still think the smart thing would be for them to shut down and conserve their finances, but there could be an argument here to look. Rob, I think you were with me. I think you believe that, yeah, the other movie theaters were going to follow suit with Regal shutting down. AMC has chosen not to. What do you think of the decision?
Well, one, as you pointed out, I mean, they have a big nut that they have to cover, billions in debt. And they, as you well know, as we talked about before, they've spent a lot of money refurbishing their theaters. And I have to say, they've done a fine job of it.
Magnificent, actually. They've done a great job. I got to give them credit. They've done a great job at that.
They've done a great job. And look, AMC, every time that I've gone there over the last couple of years, I mean, we were talking about how it's been a year since we saw Joker at their Dolby Cinema at the Burbank 16. Fantastic cinemas, fantastic presentation. Really like their cinemas. However, with a lack of blockbusters driving movie-going attendance, and it seems like there's a bit of a flotsam and jetsam of weird movies coming out that they are going to be playing. I don't know how it's going to be financially viable for them to stay open, because not only do they have their staff, they have to clean the theaters and they have to make sure that they're keeping everybody safe as well, which I don't know if that requires more people, but the amount of people that they're going to get coming to those theaters to see those movies, especially during the week. I saw that some theaters might be open only during weekends. But I don't know how viable it is. I don't know how smart it is. But on the other hand, can they make more money than it costs them to operate? What's the P&L statement going to look like on December 31st for the rest of the year for them? I don't know. I to be honest, I don't have a sense of, I don't know enough about the business. I can talk about box office till the cows come home, but I really don't know what the day-to-day operations of a movie theater chain, what their burn rate is on their cash resources. I just don't know. So only they can know. And if they're staying open, they obviously know more than I do. So I wish them the best. I want to see them tough it out. I would love to see AMC succeed, and I'd like to see these chains emerge even stronger after all this is over.
I agree. 100% I agree. So I question the wisdom of this decision, but like you said, I mean, with the extra money coming in that would have gone to Regal, with them saving the cost of trying to start, I mean, maybe at the end of the day, you're right, Rob. And you know what? The sooner, the shorter that Regal needs to stay closed, the smarter the AMC decision will look. Because if Regal's able to open back up in December, then AMC will look fairly smart. That, oh, yeah, instead of going through the whole rigmarole of shutting down, laying people off, then rehiring people, getting everything back up running for only 2 months. But the longer the shutdown lasts, the dumber this decision is going to look. They're rolling the dice. They're taking the risk. Sometimes you got to do that, I suppose. Question is, guys, what do you think? about AMC's decision to keep the doors open during this time when another major chain like Regal has decided to shut the doors, conserve their energy from the movies are coming back. Smart move, done move. Do you think the gamble will pay off? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. One more thing off the top for us to discuss, kind of tied into everything else about the state of the movie world, and that is this. I mean, the entire last 6 months has been one long procession of us hearing about one big movie after another being delayed and being moved and all this kind of stuff. We're going to talk about a couple of those movies today. But one of the movies of note that has been moved completely off the release schedule, like we don't even have a new release date for it, is Black Adam. Now, the journey of Black Adam is becoming almost as comical as the journey of New Mutants.
Or the Flash.
Flash, yes. Because Black Adam, if you guys will recall, was actually first announced with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson playing the role of Black Adam, was actually announced in 2014. 6 years ago. And it might have been 2015. I believe it was 2014. I still remember at the CinemaCon when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson came out on stage, and here we are, still nothing. Now, it was scheduled to be released in December of 2021. So about a year and 2 months from now is when it was going to be released. They still haven't started shooting this thing. Now, a lot of people, myself included, Rob, started to think positively because the whole notion, the idea was, well, look, we're seeing a lot of other productions get back into production now. So probably, Black Adam will be able to get into production soon and they'll be able to hit that release date of December 2021. So it's not like this is one of those movies that was supposed to come out during the pandemic and got bumped. I mean, whatever. But apparently, I think this is probably more of an indication that because of all the delays, because of all the chaos that's been going on in Hollywood, Rob, this is probably a matter of people they thought, like crew that they thought they had lined up, simply are going to be taken up with other things right now. With all that reshuffling, I just don't think they're ready to start production. And therefore, since they're not ready to start production, they're never going to be able to make that release date. Therefore, I think while obviously COVID is a factor in this, I think it's really more the aftermath of COVID is more causing this at this point, because movies are in production, but I think the chaos to scheduling for most people is what's throwing things off here for this. So as of right now, there is no release date. They didn't even bother giving another date. They just said, you know what? They just pulled it off the schedule. It's gone. It's not there. Obviously, it'll still get made at some point. Rob, this was a movie that wasn't supposed to come out for another 14 months anyway. It's not like it was about to come out in a few months, but how big of a deal is it that, once again, we have no release date for Black Adam? What are your thoughts? Sigh.
I mean, this movie was shaping up to be one of the more interesting movies, just to see what they were going to do with it and who was going to be in it and everything in their talk. I mean, I look at it this way. They're going to have this extra time to retool it if they need to and make it the best movie it can be. But, it is frustrating. What are we going to get? How are we going to get it? Like we talked about, it might have a historical component to it. You're going to go back in time and get his origin. And broadening the Shazam mythos, I thought was great. I want to see this. But to have it gone entirely, I mean, that means they have no plans with I thought they were in active pre-production on this movie. And if that's the case, if they're shifting it entirely off the schedule, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not working on it. It just means that they've moved it off a release date.
Absolutely.
So maybe plans are still moving forward, that they are going to make the film. They just don't know what to do with it yet because they don't want to lock themselves into a date that they're later. I mean, their schedule's been messed up already. They've got films moving around all over the place. So to date this movie now, I think maybe it's just premature. Maybe now it's just too far out with all the shifting that's happening. So they didn't want to say.
I think
maybe that's not affecting production.
I don't think they at all have probably stopped work on this movie. Like, I think you're absolutely right about that. There's been no announcement that, everybody who was working on the storyboards and everybody who's all the costume departments that were making things, all there stopped. No, I don't think that's true at all. I think you're absolutely right about that. They just probably don't know when they can actually get in front of the cameras yet.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, then you can't know when your date's going to be. So it'll be interesting to see how this sort of plays out. Guys, maybe it's not that big of a deal because, again, it's not a movie that was about to come out. It was still a ways off, but it's just another thing. Just another thing for us to be disappointed. What do you think about this delay of Black Adam? How soon do you think they'll reschedule it? Who knows, Rob? Maybe they'll pull a rabbit out of the hat and give us an earlier release date. I mean, who am I kidding? That's not going to happen. But when do you think we're going to finally, ultimately, maybe get this Black Adam movie? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7. If you come across a big news story that we should be talking about, going over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. And by the way, quick shout out to Wyatt Bender, who sent in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, Wyatt. Appreciate that, man. All right, guys, with all that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets sent into us by James Argenta. And James Argenta writes, Just saw on Game of Thrones Twitter that Paddy Considine, I've never known how to pronounce Paddy's last name properly, that Paddy Considine has been cast as the first Viserys Targaryen in the House of Dragon. Viserys the first was the 5th Targaryen king, whose reign set up the Targaryen Civil War, aka Dance of the Dragons, which led to the eventual extinction, I should say, of the dragons, 20 at start, 4 at end. After mixed reception to the final Game of Thrones season, do you think a House of Dragon will attract most of the same audience and help HBO Max have its first Uber hit? All right, thanks a lot for sharing that, man. And yes, Paddy, I like Paddy. I'm just not going to say his last name because I always mispronounce it. I like it. He's whenever he pops up, he's always good. He's always solid. Clearly, really, the news here is movement on House of the Dragon. That's really the news here, that we've got our Game of Thrones spin-off series getting some movement. This series is going to take place 300 years before the events of the Game of Thrones television series. Now, let me say something that is going to be completely unpopular, but I don't care. Last season of Game of Thrones was awesome. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care what anybody else says. I thought the last season of Game of Thrones was great. It had its weaknesses. I'm very, very critical of the fact that they didn't need to, they chose to only make it 6 episodes, which caused some structural problems and some pacing problems, that there was no need for that, to have a 6-episode final season. That was an idiotic decision. But that aside, I thought the season was great. I don't care if you disagree with me on that. Anyway, that aside. Yeah, I think I'm very excited for this because, Rob, and will this bring in a huge audience? Oh, hell yes. Hell yes, it'll bring in a huge audience. Rob, for all the bitching and moaning and whining and complaining that we as fans love to do, myself included, but in this particular case, the ones of Game of Thrones who didn't like the final season, guess what happened? Every single episode, the viewership went up and up and up and up. The viewership just kept going up. And won sets all sorts of records, Rob, at the Emmys, winning a ton of Emmy Awards, all that kind of stuff. Are people still going to come back and watch a prequel? Oh, hell yes. Now, how good or how successful it's going to be overall, Rob, is really going to depend on how good or bad this show is. I mean, if the show is great, it'll maintain it. But when it starts, you bet your ass it's going to be big. Record-breaking numbers, who knows? I'm not saying that at all, but it'll be big. When this first comes out, it'll be big, and then it'll all be about how good or how bad is the show. But I think, yes, absolutely, this is completely poised to possibly be the next big or maybe first big Uber hit for HBO Max. Rob, despite how I feel, there was a lot of Game of Thrones fans who weren't satisfied with the final season. Do you think momentum can be carried into this new show?
Well, I asked Tyrion Lannister, and Tyrion Lannister had a drink, and he says that yes, indeed, he is in fact excited about
I hear
this
he
new
drinks
series.
and knows things.
He drinks and he knows this series is going to be pretty good. And this is, of course, 7th season Tyrion, as opposed to I have a 3rd season Tyrion who doesn't have a beard, but they both have things to drink from. So there you go. He says it's going to be, no, I think it sounds exciting. It's got different showrunners. Obviously, it's delving in a way, they're kind of doing what Amazon decided to do with Lord of the Rings. I mean, Lord of the Rings is going back and dealing with the second age of Middle-earth, and the second age of Middle-earth ends with the War of the Ring that we see at the beginning of Fellowship, the movie, and they're doing kind of the same thing. They're not going back, or maybe they are? No, they're not going back 2,000 years, but it is still a prequel series, but it sounds like they picked a very interesting time in
300
Westeros
years before
history.
the events of the main show.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds great. More dragons, more infighting, the Targaryen civil war where their families ripped apart. It sounds like high drama to me. I'll tune in.
And really, at the end of the day, that was kind of the hallmark of Game of Thrones, right? Like, it wasn't, especially the first few seasons, there were no dragons. I mean, other than the odd shot of the little baby, it's the high drama. It's the political intrigue. It's all that kind of stuff wrapped into one. Can they carry that over? We'll see. I think interesting to note, like one of the main directors of the show is also coming over to direct a bunch of this. Shapanok or Shapanok? I can't remember.
Miguel, yeah.
Yes, that's him exactly. So they're bringing. So there's going to be a sense of there's going to be a style continuity there too. I think it sounds pretty good. Question is for you guys: what do you think about this? Do you think the audience will be there for when this Game of Thrones spinoff starts up? I believe they will. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe you think there's a lot of good reasons that maybe they won't. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Victor Harris. And Victor Harris writes, "Hey, John and crew. A few days ago, I remember somebody asking on your show if we were going to see Clint Eastwood acting anymore." That's right, somebody did. Great timing, because I just read that he signed up for his next lead role. According to the story, he's going to star in and direct a movie called Cry Macho, a movie he almost made back in the 1980s. What do you think of this? And do you think that Clint can still bring it on screen? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, it is pretty funny because somebody just the other day did write in during the live questions part of the show asking, hey, do you think we're going to see Clint back again? Do you think we're going to see him acting anymore? Well, the answer to that question is yes. He's coming back to do this. He's going to star in and direct in Cry Macho. And he's back in front of the camera again. This comes to us from Cineblend, who writes, set in the late 1970s, Cry Macho follows the story of a washed-up horse trainer in Texas who was offered $50,000 by his former boss to snatch his boss's son away from his mother in Mexico City and bring him back to the United States. An adaptation of the book has been in development for a long time now, with the plan a decade back being for the project to be developed as a starring vehicle for Arnold Schwarzenegger that would have been directed by Brad Furman, who directed The Lincoln Lawyer. And of course, once again, there was some point back in the 80s when Clint Eastwood was looking at this project as well. So that's pretty interesting right there. Do I think that Clint Eastwood can still bring it? It's not a ridiculous question, but it is almost ridiculous. It's Clint Eastwood. Of course he'll bring it. I mean, even it doesn't matter how old this guy gets. I mean, I don't know if you saw The Mule, Rob, but
I did.
I didn't love The Mule, but I liked it. But Clint Eastwood continues to bring it. I'll take Clint Eastwood on screen any day. I'll take him directing any day. I'll take him on screen any day. He's just still got it. He has not shown the slightest iota at all of slowing down in the least. Like, not the smallest bit has he looked like he's slowing down. So if it's Clint Eastwood's involved in a project, you can at bare minimum sign me up as being interested. Absolutely. This guy is, from the Hall of the Gods when it comes to, if Hollywood was a Greek pantheon, he's from the Hall of the Gods. So yeah, sign me up. This sounds great. I'm on board. Rob, you had a chance to hear about this. What do you think of him doing Cry Macho?
Well, he turned 90 in May.
Yes, he did.
And, if nothing else, it's not like he's turning out some direct-to-video drivel. He's always turning out A-list movies that have really compelling stories. And I mean, Richard Jewell, I finally caught up with that. That was a fantastic movie for what it was. I mean, I couldn't believe that, he was doing that and doing The Mule at this age. I mean, he's a testament to living a life well lived, I guess. And I love the fact that we're seeing a filmmaker working not just in front of, but behind the camera at 90 plus. This is a very inspiring thing to me. And it doesn't sound like he's like making movies about somebody in an old folks home. They're out there traveling across Mexico, having an adventure. I mean, my God loved this man.
Yeah, I look, he's clearly never going to retire. I mean, right, like he just turned 90 and he's still planning on not only directing but starring in movies. So he ain't going to retire, which is great for us. He's going to make these movies until they pry the camera from his cold dead hands. He's going to keep doing it, and I'm going to be keeping there to watch it. So I love this news. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Do you think Clint Eastwood can still bring it? Like, maybe you disagree with us. Maybe you feel like you've seen his last couple of outings and maybe you feel he has lost a step. Personally, I don't think he has in either his directing or his acting. I still think he's great. I'm looking forward to this. Question is, what do you think about it? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Steve Calderon, who writes, Warner Brothers pushed back Dune to October 1st of 2021. Yes, they did. It was supposed to come out this December. They've moved it almost a year to October 1st of 2021. While it's a smart move to delay the film, but is this new date the right time to release it? Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049 was also released on the first weekend of October in 2017, and it ended up being a box office disappointment. Do you think Dune will be any different? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, Rob, we were just talking about this yesterday on the show. We talked about the fact that, hey, Regal's announcing they're shutting down. It's still possible Dune keeps that release date, but now we're starting to think it won't. Sure enough, just shortly afterwards, they announced it has moved not by 3 months, not by 5 months. They've moved it all the way to October 31st of 2021. All the way to October 1st of 2021. Now, let's address this part of the question here first. Is moving it to October the problem? I mean, because as Steve points out in his email, when you look at Blade Runner 2049, clearly a film that was quite disappointing at the box office, it came out in October as well. Does that mean October is a bad time for a Denis Villeneuve film to be released? Well, that's assuming that October was the problem. The problem with Blade Runner and its box office failure had nothing to do with the month it came out. I'm going to just tell you that right now. The problem with Blade Runner 2049 was that they completely botched the marketing campaign. They never once told the audience what the movie was even about. They just said, hey, everybody, it's a Blade Runner movie, and then thought that just automatically meant everybody was going to rush out to the theaters. And as Rob has pointed out several times, that was a massive miscalculation on their part. And to me, the trailers were just interesting visually, but they did nothing to sell people to go see the movie or to tell the audience why they should feel like they should go see the movie. They never once gave the slightest idea what that movie was about. The problem wasn't the month of October. You could have released Blade Runner 2049 on Christmas Day. With that marketing campaign, it still would have been a massive disappointment. So I don't believe the month is going to be the problem. Now, anyway, this comes to us from the folks over Variety, who writes, news of Dune's delay comes days after James Bond's sequel, No Time to Die, which was originally set to launch at the end of November, was pushed back to 2021. That decision prompted Regal, the second biggest U.S. theater chain, to close down its venues after reopening in August. And Rob, there is nothing in here, in this story, to say that Dune moving has anything to do with Regal shutting their doors. As a matter of fact, the decision to move Dune was probably made a week ago. Probably, and we're just knowing about it now. But Regal shutting their doors, I'm sure just kind of cemented the decision. I mean, I'm sure they made them feel better about the decision at this point. I don't understand needing to move it 10 months. That I don't understand. The only thing I can think of, Rob, that would say why they should move it that far is that they feel very good about this movie and maybe they want to get it as close to Oscar season as they can. But that I don't know because I haven't seen the film. But anyway, Rob, obviously you're not terribly surprised they've moved Dune. What do you think about the move, and what do you think about them moving it all the way to October?
Well, I mean, 2021 is packed to the rafters. And I think that, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Like you had said just now, close to the Oscars, close to the holiday season, but they've given it enough room that it can live on its own, live and breathe on its own. I think they just want it moved away from other blockbusters. You know, the way they had it, Warner Brothers was going to put Wonder Woman and Dune out like within a week of each other at the end of this year. So I think it's better off. And as far as whether the movie's going to be successful, like Blade Runner 2049, like you pointed out, Blade Runner was not a successful movie, the original Blade Runner. It's a cult hit. And if you work in the entertainment business, the movie's very revered for its vision. But to the general population, Blade Runner is not, you know, people aren't like, oh boy, you know, that's a classic film. Whereas Dune is a literary adaptation. They've still been publishing, Kevin Anderson and Brian Herbert have been publishing Dune books, even after Herbert's 6 books for years. It's more of a known commodity. And I think the cast alone is going to drive a lot of moviegoers into the theater to see this. And I think they want to give it, you know, look, it's one of my most anticipated movies in years, especially with the cast and the creative talent behind it. I think they want to give it the best possible way, the best possible place in order for it to succeed. Because remember, it's only the first half of Dune, the first book. So I want them to knock it out of the park with this. As I said, I read the screenplay. The screenplay was amazing, a fantastic adaptation, and the cast. Oh my God, I can't wait. But I guess I'm gonna have to wait unless, you know, maybe I'll die soon. I mean, I can be dead by the time this movie comes out, and I won't see the new James Bond movie. I won't see my beloved Justice for Han happen. And I don't know, man. 2021 could either be the greatest year or the last year of my life. Who knows?
You know, in talking about the movie in its own isolated form, like the decision to take this film, move it off, you know, was it going to work for it now in December, all things considered, they move it 10 months, all that kind of stuff. In the midst of all that, I think we would be remiss to not address kind of the larger symbolic thing here. Dune was really the last true, it was our shining hope for 2020. You know what I mean? Like for you and I both, we've both been saying for a while that it is our most anticipated movie of the year. And in the midst of, with everything else moving, I mean, I believe Wonder Woman is still scheduled for December 25th. I don't believe for a second. I'll keep my fingers crossed. I'm dying to see Patty Jenkins' new film. I am. But, you know, we've really been looking to Dune. That Dune will be the thing. Man, if Dune can hold on, if Dune can keep that release date. And I think really for me, and I can only speak for myself, Dune has now kind of become the avatar, if you will, for my great disappointment in 2020. And, you know, yes, it sucked that Black Widow moved. It sucked that, you know, Bond moved. It sucked that Fast 9 moved. And that all sucked. But none of them, when they made their moves, were ever the last straw. Despite the fact that Wonder Woman 84 is still on Christmas Day 2020, I don't think any of us believe it's going to be able to keep that date, especially if Regal doesn't open back up again. To me, Dune kind of becomes the symbol of that was the last hope. You know, that it just seems to me like 2020 at this point is like a complete wash. And I decided to actually make that the topic of today's question of the day. And just before we started the show up here today, I jumped on our community tab on the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys go and check that out. And I asked you guys simply this. I asked you guys, question of the day. Understanding that as of right now, there are still a couple of big films scheduled to open, and AMC says they're staying open. But with Regal closing, now all the movies, do you think any major films, because there's still a couple of smaller films coming up, but do you think any major film will release in the rest of 2020? We talk about this some more in today's show. I've just put this up just before the show started. Almost 5,000 of you guys have already registered votes. And right now, hey, 33% of you guys are deciding to live with the optimism, man. 33% of you saying yes, at least one major film, which I guess would either be Soul or Wonder Woman at this point. At least one major film will still open in the calendar year of 2020, damn it. Meanwhile, 67% of you saying FU 2020. You do not believe any of the major films will still be able to open this year. Once again, guys, that's up in the community tab of the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys subscribe. Go check that out there. I will leave that poll up. Again, almost 5,000 you guys have voted. 33% of you say yes, one of the major films will still open. 67% of you guys are saying nope, turn out the lights. The party is over for 2020. Question is, guys, what do you think? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that down, let's now move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Tyler. And Tyler writes, more unfortunate news. Jeez, we just dealt with the Dune thing. All right, more unfortunate news from the Hollywood Reporter that Warner Brothers is shifting its next few years of movies. Since Dune is now releasing October 1st, 2021. Remember, we said that in Dune? Well, if that October 1st, 2021 date sounded familiar, it's because that was the release date of the new Robert Pattinson Batman movie. Not anymore. The Batman is being bumped 5 more months to March 4th of 2022. With more movies being pushed, what is the gradual transition back to theaters going to look like? And do you think it will kick off with Warner's Wonder Woman 84 in December? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And look, no. My optimism for 2020 is gone. We just discussed that. I don't think Wonder Woman 84 is going to be able to hold on to that December 25th release date. I hope it does. I desperately hope it does, but I really don't think it will. And now we find out that Batman is moving. Not a huge surprise considering what we heard about Dune going to the same date. There's no way Warner was going to have Dune and Batman open on the same day. This comes to us from Variety, who writes, the Batman will no longer hit theaters in 2021 at all. In another major release calendar overhaul, Warner Brothers has delayed the comic book adventure and a number of other movies, including The Flash and Shazam 2. So there are a couple of other films that have been affected by this. The Flash vacated its June 3rd, 2022 slot to move to November 4th, 2022. So it's moved back even further. Meanwhile, Shazam 2 will open on June 2nd, 2023, instead of its original November 4th, 2022 date. We are now not going to get a Shazam 2 until 2023. I believe, if my math is correct, Rob, which, it sometimes is not, that means 5 years in between films. 5 years in between Shazam films. That's not a small thing for a movie like Shazam, when you got to capitalize on momentum. I thought 4 years was a bit. 5 years that's pushing it a bunch. But let's talk about Batman here for a second. Again, much like Black Adam, it's not like Batman was about to come out imminently. Like, it's not like it was on the precipice of being released. It was still a ways off altogether. But it feels like for us movie fans, there's something about, I get it, it's 5 months. Another 5 months is not an eternity, but there's just something symbolic, Rob, about that. It's moved from 2022 to 2023. I mean, that's the part, or should I say, moved from 2021 to 2022. It moved a calendar year. It moved a calendar year. This is one that we've been so excited about. I mean, even before DC Fandom came out and they released that fantastic trailer, we've all been excited about it. And it just feels like, another elbow to the penis. That's what it feels like. It's just another one. Is that what it feels like? That feels like the elbow, the elbow of 2020 to the penis. That's what it feels like. And it feels like we've been repeatedly taking these groin shots for the last 6 months as film fans. And it just really sucks. It just really sucks. Again, if Flash has moved, if that movie ever happens, that movie was supposed to release in theaters 2 years ago. So whatever. Shazam 2 is going to have a 5-year gap. The one little shining spot is buried in this story, Rob, is that Matrix has actually moved up. Matrix 2, which I'm actually honestly not all that excited about. I don't care that much about it, but they are moving it up a number of months. So that's one glimmering kind of shining hope in there. But it seems like it's not just the movies that are supposed to be coming out really soon. Feels like nothing is safe. It's caused a lot of trouble. But Rob, maybe we shouldn't be surprised by this because you and I talked about how all these movies moving, it is going to cause other chaos in release schedules later. Rob, you and I both said that don't think for a second this is the end of the chaos. Once the pandemic's done, that's not the end of the chaos as far as movie goes. You're going to see repercussions and ripple effects of scheduling and things like that, and we're already starting to see the beginnings of that now. Anyway, Rob, it is only an additional 5-month move. It wasn't coming out anytime soon. But just symbolically, them, even Batman having to move, and now just that instead of coming out in 2021, it's now 2022. Again, just for the morale of me as a film fan, this is a blow. I feel like this is a blow. Anyway, Rob, you took a look at this. How do you assess the situation?
You know, I'm right there with you. I mean, think about it. You're talking years from now, and you know, I was talking about this yesterday on my own show. I lead my life, my entire, like the last 45 years of my life has been, I mark time by what year movies come out. I mean, I grow up based on my entire life. I can sit there and tell you, maybe not as much as Scott Mantz could, but when a movie came out, when it was released, what it means to me. And I feel like with this year, I've had that taken away. This sort of like lifelong indicator, like my health bar in a video game, you know, it's full of movies. And this year, those movies have been taken away. And with the movies that I want to see, they're getting pushed out further and further and further. And it is a bummer. Like, I know that it's first world problems and, you know, there's people that are suffering from depression and they don't have their jobs anymore and their lives are not nearly as good as they were a year ago. I get all that. But in terms of where I'm at in my own headspace, my imagination is what fuels my life. And to not have that fire that burns in my imagination just leaves me empty, John. Maybe I should like go to church some more or something and find some other forms of fulfillment. I don't know.
Well, I mean, but you look, and you just raised a good point. Look, we are totally cognizant of the fact that this is, of course, first world problems. But on this show is about that little box of the entertainment world, and within that little box, you know, we're taking groin shots right now. It has been difficult, and it's been tough to be a movie fan.
No, that's a good way to put it. That this is specifically, we don't address larger world issues. We address what it's like to be a movie fan for this specific interest level, which I like. I like the specificity of being able to talk about these things. And on that level, it's just been like one demoralizing announcement after another. You know, you're waiting like, oh, I'm going to get to see No Time to Die. Finally, I've been wanting to see it since April. Oh, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, I look back and I look in the mirror and I talk to John of this past March 2020.
Right. How is John of this past March doing?
Oh, blissfully naive, Rob, because that John is still thinking that all the theaters will be open by July. And, you know, we're going to have just a couple of months. It'll suck. But in July, the movies will be back out. We're going to have, you know, Black Widow. We're going to have Wonder Woman. And we're going to have James Bond. And we're going to have Dune. And we're going to have all these movies. And everything's going to be good. It's just going to be that John of March of 2020 is still living in blissful naivete right now. That's what he's doing. And it's just and I've watched now. As John from March of 2020 to like July of 2020 to John of October 2020 has slowly but surely gotten more and more jagged and gotten more and more, you know, crusty and gotten more and more pessimistic about everything. And it's really too bad. And
I would like to point one thing out to John of 2020 as opposed to the John of today.
What's that? John
of 2020 did not have a feature-length documentary that he had finished producing and directing and now started it gets into film festivals. So the John of 2020 didn't have that. He was in process of that, but he didn't know where it was going to take him. Now the John of today has completed a feature-length film that is beginning its festival run, and that, my friend, is very impressive.
Yeah, and
So there is that.
I'm very grateful for that. I am. I'm very, very grateful for that. But as a film fan, I just want to see these movies. Anyway, guys, question is, look, we understand the Batman was still a ways off anyway. It's not like it moved 5 years, but it just feels like, as a film fan, it feels like another blow. What do you guys, what's your reaction to this news that the Batman has now been moved to the calendar year of 2022? What do you guys think? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all that down, let's now go over and start taking your live comments and questions. There's the main way to get your comment or question on here live is simply this. Go over to the description of the video and you'll see right at the top of the description a tip link. Go ahead and use that link or enter it in manually. streamlabs.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. So with that down, let's get over to it. We're going to start things off here with a couple of questions that we didn't get time to get to on yesterday's show. We're going to start off with Mark C. And we'll pick up with Mark C., who writes, John, on top of all of this, theater chains and studios are normally going to have to go to the Fed, I guess you mean the federal government, to ask for a bailout. With no reason for delaying releases, I don't want my money going towards these businesses. Here's the, I hear what you're saying, Mark. I get my back up whenever I hear about like businesses and certain industries getting bailed out when there's really no need to. To me, and I said this the other day, Rob, I want to know what you think about this. When it comes down to any type of a government bailout, the question for me becomes, what's going to be more expensive for the government? And we fund the government. So what's going to be more expensive for you and me? Is it going to be more expensive for the government to put together an aid package to make sure that it's not just the theater industry, it's the movie industry, to make sure that the movie industry, with all the jobs and all the tax revenue and all the stuff that it generates, will it be more expensive to put together an aid package to make sure that industry survives? Or will it be more expensive to not? Because Rob, you often point out, it's not just the people who work at the movie theaters. It's not just the people who, do the lighting and whatever on movie sets. It's all the industries that are also connected to that, whether it's equipment industries or service industries or candy industries or whatever, unions, people, how many people are going to go out of work? How much tax revenue is going to be lost? And I'm not saying I know the answer to that, but while I understand it feels weird, you do have to ask the question, ultimately, what will cost the least? Because maybe the government putting together an aid package to keep that industry afloat in the long run is going to be the least expensive option than how much it's going to cost the government to deal with the fallout of an entire industry going under. That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Rob, how would you address that?
Well, it's a question that again, I don't even know what the economic impact, how far reaching it is.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think about just my own habits of when I go to the movies, like the ArcLight, my beloved ArcLight in Hollywood. Like when I would go to the ArcLight, they also have a restaurant there that's actually quite good and a really great bar. So when we would go see movies there, we would have dinner usually. And that means you've got the servers and this is in a movie theater, but in addition to everybody that works on the theatrical side, there's the restaurant side. And then when I go like here in Pasadena, there's like it's a chain restaurant, but like the Yard House is there. The Yard House is huge. It's a huge restaurant. It's literally right across the walkway from the ArcLight Theater. And that place was always packed with moviegoers, either coming out of a movie or going into a movie. And that place employed a lot of people. Now, the Yard House is in a large complex in Pasadena that is full of other stores, all kinds of stores, clothing stores, all kinds of retail establishments, and it anchors that place. And without that kind of foot traffic, I wonder exponentially, and let's go outside of the mall, across the street from that building are other businesses. I mean, theaters drive traffic of people, and people don't usually, a lot of the times, if you go down to Burbank, to your beloved Burbank 16, and there's a bunch of stores and restaurants and
that are all reliant on that theater being open and bringing in people.
Absolutely. And there's a huge and theaters that are in malls, and it's the movement of people through these economic ecosystems that are being affected. So it's not just theaters closing, it's all businesses that exist around those theaters, especially places with lots of foot traffic, even parking structures, John. Parking structures are huge pieces of real estate. And if people aren't going to the movies, I mean, those parking structures know that how many hundreds of people are served by parking structures that I know down in Burbank, you have to pay. It's not necessarily free for a certain amount of time, but I can't even, the economic impact has to be tremendous.
Yeah. And again, I just think, you and I don't know what the full economic impact would be, but I mean, if the answer is it would be cheaper for the government to just let that industry die or leave it on its own, then that's probably the best choice for the government. But if economic studies show that it's actually going to cost the government more money in the long run if they don't do something about it, then they got to do something about it. It's whatever is the least expensive option for the taxpayer, right? And I don't know what that answer is, but I mean, smarter people than me are going to have to do these economic studies because I don't know what they are. But it's a complicated issue. That's the bottom line. All right, let's keep moving on here. Elminster writes, by the way, I was born in Hamilton, Ontario. That is my hometown, the Hammer. Hamilton, Ontario, Canada is my hometown. I still call it home. And I grew up in Carlisle, which a buddy of mine, Rob, is from Rod is from Carlisle, a guy who used to be on the movie blog with me. Rod, he's from Carlisle. Anyway, then moved when I was still a teenager to Charlotte, North Carolina in 1985. We also still own a family cottage in Honey Harbor, Ontario, which we visit yearly, except for obviously this year. Always good to hear from somebody from the Hammer, man. Thanks for letting me know about that, Elminster. I appreciate that. All right, Justin, time to chat writes, working at my local AMC cinemas was the greatest job in the world. I loved my job and my coworkers like family. When we got the email from AMC that they were permanently shutting down our theater, we were all devastated. Screw COVID. And Rob, that is something we actually haven't talked a lot about, is that in the midst, what has flown under a lot of our radars is in the midst of movie theaters, the chains shutting down temporarily at one point, now maybe some, was that in the midst of that, in these chains, a number of theaters just got their doors closed permanently. Like within the chain, there were some locations and theaters struggling a little bit more than the others, and the COVID thing just killed it. And that's true. I know of a couple of AMCs that actually got shut down permanently. So I don't know which one it is that Justin worked at, but that's one, and they're not coming back. So some will open back up. A lot of them won't. It's and yes, I agree with James. Screw COVID, man. Screw COVID. All right. Jaylene Pryor writes, also, I meant I was attending the Toronto Film School. My bad, I should have clarified. But thanks for everything you do, man. Question. Do you feel like sometimes I let your critic hold back? Probably meant you. Do you feel like sometimes you let your critic hold back the fan part of you when it comes to comic book movies? Example, Spider-Man Live AC. I don't know what that means. You know what? No, I've been asked that question a lot. And Rob, I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes I wonder, like, is the critic part of me doing this? But you know what? I have never, the reason I don't call myself a film critic, I do film criticism. Yes. Can you technically call me a film critic? Yes, I suppose you can. But the reason I call myself a film pundit and not a film critic is because I am 24/7 a fan. I mean, that's it. And I approach everything as a fan. You just heard me talking about the Batman news, Rob. I wasn't looking at that from an analytical business. I was looking at that as a fan. It is elbowing me in the penis, right? I feel like everything I approach, and that bothers some people. Some people want me to be more professional, but I don't know how to be, okay? I just know how to be a fan. And so I approach everything as a fan. I express everything as a fan. So no, I really don't think the critic part of me gets in the way of the fan part of me. You know, some people, if I don't like a certain comic book, something in a comic book movie, it's not because of the critic part of me. It's no, as a fan, I didn't think that worked, right? But I don't know, Rob, do you sometimes, like, especially as you started your own YouTube channel and stuff like that, do you sometimes find yourself wrestling with that a little bit, or what's your approach?
No, I completely agree with you because I'm first and foremost a fan. Like, I love movies. And while I have written professionally for magazines and things in the past, I was the critic at large for Sci-Fi Universe magazine in the 90s, where I was a movie critic. I was writing critical reviews of things. But I feel like now, as a fan and a pundit, if I declare my love for a movie that I think, let's just say, is less than excellent, like I love Louis Coates, a.k.a. Luigi Cozzi's Star Crash, starring Caroline Munro, David Hasselhoff, Marjo Gortner, Joe Spinell. I'll say right now, it's not a great movie, but I dearly love it. I love Tough Turf, Fritz Kirch's Tough Turf with Robert Downey Jr. and James Spader and Kim Richards and Olivia Barish from 1985. Not a great movie. So when people would come to me, if I was being a professional critic, and they would say, Rob, how can you like those movies? How can you call yourself a critic that we should listen to if you're going to say that you love movies that are, say, less than great? And they've got a point. And I justify that by saying there are things about those movies that I dearly love that I know objectively are not good, but I like them. You know, it's my subjective, because I believe differently than you. I believe that while my opinion and every moviegoer's opinion is subjective, I think there are things within art that make them objectively good. That's why this 100 different movies on the AFI 100 Greatest Movies list, that there's a general consensus about what movies are great, because there's an objective greatness to those films. Now, you don't have to like them, but I still think that, you know, for me to like movies that I know are not great would compromise me as a critic if I'm out there criticizing things. So I prefer to be a fan, and I approach things from a fan perspective, like you. I mean, I want to be able to love things and not have people go, well, as a critic, how can you say you like this? And I'm like, look, I like cheesy B movies. I like kaiju movies. I like Godzilla's Revenge. I know it's not even a good Godzilla movie, but how could I be a great film critic if I said I loved a movie like Godzilla's Revenge that I know isn't good compared to even other Godzilla films? So I would prefer to just say I love these kinds of movies and go from there.
Let's move on here. Next up, we got Phil Singh, who writes, hi from the UK, John. Well, hello there, Phil. Long-time viewer, but first time I've sent a question. Well, thank you for sending in a question, man. Gutted about Cineworld's closure. However, I support a smaller cinema chain, The Light, with numerous visits in the last month. Going to go see Akira on the 7th. And again, Phil, you are doing what a lot of your fellow film fans have been doing during this pandemic, finding the silver lining. And in the midst of all the crap, you take whatever little silver lining you can get. And for a lot of film fans, it's been, hey, I've got to go to my local little theater and check out some great catalog films, whether it's Godfather or Akira or Empire Strikes Back or Back to the Future, you know, using those opportunities to go back. And I'm glad you've been able to take advantage of that. I hope you get to continue to take advantage of that and that your local theaters don't close down as well. All right. Spencer S. from Detroit writes, I was so excited when my AMC was going to be allowed to open this Friday, but was surprised they have yet to post any showtimes. Now I think it's because AMC is planning to close theaters once again and won't be opening theaters that are already closed. Well, again, we just heard AMC come out and say, we talked about this earlier, that they are not planning on closing down. They're going to stay open. Ultimately, I think they will have to close down again, but will they reopen theaters they have yet to reopen? That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. They very well could. I especially think, Rob, that once Los Angeles says it's cool for you to open theaters again, I think you'll see the AMCs in LA open. I think the same of New York. But if there's other places around the country, say smaller places, smaller theaters, that they haven't opened yet, will they just keep those ones closed for now? It's a good question. I don't know. Keep your eyes open to that, Spencer, and please do drop me a note and let me know if they do indeed go ahead and open up and follow through with opening the plans up rather than just keeping the theaters that are already open. That's a good question. All right, Starscream writes, hello, John. If the movie industry was to die, would the Marvel movie universe be canceled? Would they just not make the rest of the planned movies? Would some or many of the movie studios go bankrupt? Stay safe. And as always, all hail Starscream. Well, I mean, Rob, you and I have talked a bunch about what are the longer reaching repercussions. If there are no movie theaters, will some studios go bankrupt? Absolutely. Absolutely they will, because they survive on, Rob, you and I have often talked about, you know what pays for all the art, indie-like, smaller films? The blockbusters is what pays for those. Without the blockbusters, without the movies there to generate, Rob, 2019 was one of the biggest money generating years at the box office in cinematic history. It was second or third biggest year in history. Without that type of revenue coming in, some of these studios just won't be able to operate. Not all the studios are as diverse as, say, a Disney is, or as diverse as, say, Warner Brothers is. You're going to see named studios, go out of business. Now, as far as what will happen to the MCU will change. They'll have to, yes, even Disney would have to alter their plans, but the MCU itself would continue on Disney Plus in whatever other way. It would just be different. Rob, what do you think the overall ramifications for those bigger bodies would be?
Well, it's, I mean, I think everything is going to change. Everything is going to, I don't really know how they're going to change. But things are just going to have to alter across the board. I mean, eventually, look, I do think eventually we're going to come out of this. But for the time being, everything, now people are evolving methodologies of production, and I don't know. I'm so conflicted about this. I'm so like watching things evolve. Like I was impressed by Tyler Perry, how his studio would sequester an entire production team in barracks, for instance. His giant brand new Atlanta studio. And then they would power through and shoot like 25 episodes of a show. And that to me was amazing. And I'm just wondering who's going to survive, and the old ad line, who will survive and what will be left of them. It's going to be interesting to see how people adapt, and studios, man, I don't know, dude. I don't know.
But it goes without saying there will be wide-reaching repercussions. There would be wide-reaching repercussions. All right, let's move on here. Willow writes, I remember hearing news a few months earlier that Cineplex is suing Cineworld for backing out of their merger. I haven't heard any updates on the story since, but I guess Cineworld's acquisition of Cineplex is not going to happen. Yeah, when that story came out, so for those of you who may not know, Cineworld, the company that owns Regal, had entered into an agreement to buy Cineplex, which is the movie chain in Canada. And then at the last minute, Cineworld said there were breaches in the agreement. They were pulling out of buying them. Cineplex said there were no breaches in the agreement. We're going to sue you for not following through on the deal. So what the status of that is, I'm not sure. But I think either way, whatever way that lawsuit goes, whether it goes in favor of Cineworld or whether it goes in favor of Cineplex, at the end of the day, I don't expect that Cineworld is going to own Cineplex. By the way, I finally had somebody from Cineplex reach out to me.
Really?
I have been, but it wasn't for what it was. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have been very critical of my Canadian movie theater chain, Cineplex, the last couple of years. They have traditionally been my all-time favorite movie theater chain. All my favorite movie memories are at Cineplex theaters. I have driven literally thousands of miles to make sure I could be in my favorite Cineplex movie theater in Canada, in Ancaster, at the Meadowlands Cineplex Silver City. It goes by a different name now, but it's still Cineplex Theater. I have literally, on a couple of occasions, driven thousands of miles to make sure I was in my favorite theater. But I've been very critical of them the last couple of years. They've done some things that that have turned me off, quite frankly. But I actually had somebody from Cineplex reach out to me the other day about my movie, of all things. And it was actually really great because they reached out to me and they said, hey, I'm so-and-so from Cineplex, and I know you're not a big fan of us right now, but I'm just wondering if we could talk about your movie that you got going on. So I'll probably be having a conversation with them. But no, bottom line is, Willow, at the end of the day, they got this lawsuit going on, but I don't think the lawsuit is going to change the fact that you're not going to see Cineworld owning Cineplex. So there's that. JC is my girlfriend's hall pass, writes, I am trying to find out where I can buy songs. Everything seems to be streaming now and is only available with a subscription. All I want to do is download an MP3. Can I not buy songs for 99 cents each and download them anymore? I'll tell you what, I'm the wrong guy. I haven't bought a song, Rob, I almost want to say in a decade. I think it's nearly been like 10 years since I bought a song. Now, I've bought a couple of CDs because of either the people I know but even then, I can count on one hand the amount of CDs I've bought in the last decade. I would assume you can still on iTunes Store. Can't you still buy individual MP3s on iTunes Store? I mean, I would guess, but I don't know. Like when I want to listen to a song, I just load up the Google Play Music or I load up YouTube and I just search for the song and play. I mean, I don't know. Rob, do you know of anywhere where you can actually go and actually still buy individual songs?
I know that I bought this Prince box set last week of Sign of the Times that has multiple CDs in it. You can get the vinyl. But I don't know. I would assume, can't you still buy music at Apple and you can still download?
That's I don't know. I haven't tried.
I still buy CDs, so I don't know what that says about me. but
you're a physical media guy. You're a physical media guy.
Physical media, John. So indeed, I am.
All right, let's move on here. Good luck in your search, though. All right, Jonah writes, Doctor Strange 2. Stephen Strange comes across another Doctor Strange in another universe, and he's played by Bruce Campbell. Listen, we've been saying somehow, some way, Sam Raimi is going to find a way to get Bruce Campbell in his movie. And who doesn't want that?
Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's a guarantee. And it'll probably be an appearance like he was in the first Spider-Man, like a quick, I'm the ring announcer or something. It'll probably be something quick. He won't be another Doctor Strange. But Rob, maybe not $1,000, but I feel very comfortable putting $100 that somehow, some way, in one shape or another, Bruce Campbell will make an appearance in that film. I mean, do you have any doubt about that? Do you have any hesitation about that? Because I have none.
Zero
doubt.
Zero doubts.
Jonah, it looks like Rob and I are both completely on board. We think that maybe not another Doctor Strange, but he'll be there, Jonah. He will be there. All right. Sarcastic Satire writes, being a filmmaker, if you had the choice between picking the A-list talent who's notoriously difficult to work with, i.e. a Bill Murray or a Dustin Hoffman, or the more established box office draw, Dwayne Johnson, Chris Pratt, which would you prefer? This may not be the right answer, but to me, it's an easy answer. It's an easy answer. I'm going to pick the person I have the best time making my movie with. It's just that simple. Listen, Rob, like even for me, like whether you go back to AMC or whatever, part of when I would either hire somebody or greenlight a hire, because like maybe one of my other people were doing the hiring for something. Whenever I would greenlight a hire, one of the big things was because we were a lot of people, like at one point, I think we had like 23 people under the roof. You're going to have a bunch of people in a fairly confined bit of space who all have to interact and work together. Like one of my big things is, are they going to be able to click with everybody? Because like once you start getting people who don't like each other under the same roof, that becomes taxing. It becomes taxing. So to me, like I love to death. Tommy Lee Jones. I'll watch Tommy Lee Jones all day. I would never cast him in a movie though. Not just because I don't want the feeling of being scared to death every day I show up on set. That I'm going to get chewed out today by Tommy Lee Jones. As a movie fan, I will go and watch everything he does, but I wouldn't want him. So yeah, if I had to make that choice, I'm taking a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm definitely taking a Chris Pratt because if nothing else, they're going to make the set a lot of fun. So anyway, that's just me. Rob, you are a filmmaker. Which way would you lean towards given the choice?
Well, look, I mean, I want to cast the best people that are in front of the camera. All of my decisions would have to be made based on what I think they're going to bring to the role. What are they going to do to the finished film? But when I'm casting people I'm working with behind the scenes, I always cast the best people for the job that I also can work with. Because like you pointed out, working in the entertainment business, especially when you're making movies, you want to have the most talented people. But part of being talented in the entertainment business is also being able to work with all different kinds of people. You have to be well liked. You have to be respected by a spectrum of humanity. Because movie sets are like a microcosm of society. You've got blue collar, white collar. You've got people that are a support staff. And you need people that can work with all of those people. Because if there's tension on a set, it's not good. But when it comes to actors, I wouldn't be scared of Tommy Lee Jones, man, because I would want the Tommy Lee Jones-ness of it all. And for me, if I was scared of it, I would have to suck it up. Because if I could get Tommy Lee Jones to be in a movie, I'm like you. I'd be terrified of being yelled at by Tommy Lee Jones. But man, I'd want him to bring a little bit of that Fugitive or that No Country for Old Men to all of it. And if I had to endure being terrified for a while, I would be. I would be.
All right. Next up, we've got Johnny Cougar Mellencamp, who writes, "Little ditty about Jack and Diane." John Tesh moved from entertainment commentary and into music successfully. Yes, he did. Vin Diesel has a song out. Yes, he does. Times are dark and people need happiness and content. Maybe it's time for you to drop that funky hotness. Maybe it's finally time. Campea hums live. I'll kid you not. I'll kid you not, Rob. You know, I got my guitar in the back corner here. I've broke out the guitar every once in a while. But I have seriously thought about buying. I've got a lot of what I need already, but buying a few things and just writing and recording some songs. I've seriously thought about it just for hobby, just because I love doing it. So I don't actually, one of my movie, The Anniversary, like a couple of songs on the soundtrack was for my songs. I just saved myself some money and hassle by writing my own songs and putting my own songs on the soundtrack. But it's a great, fun hobby. So I've thought about doing it.
Have you ever thought about picking up the dance crew again? Because I'd like to join.
That will never happen. The Zodiac
but you could write
crew,
songs for the dance crew to perform with.
No, the Zodiac crew is gone forever, unfortunately. But yeah, maybe I'll one day on the show I'll play a track. Maybe one day on the show I'll play a track. All right.
I mean, with no movies coming out for the next 3 months, maybe we should start a dance crew.
Maybe we should, or a band. I'm more comfortable with a band.
I'll do that.
C. Mestry writes, "Hello, John. Following you for a few years. Thank you so much. Just want to say thank you for your work and the team." Oh, man, thank you so much. It's always kind of cool when somebody just wants to write in to say something nice and positive. So thank you for that, C. Mestry, and thanks for being around and thanks for watching the show, man. We appreciate it, and thanks for supporting us, dude. I appreciate that very much. All right, next up, Connor Linton writes, "We keep saying 2021 is stacked for movie theaters. Why are we assuming it's going to be better than it is now? Even if all theaters in the U.S. are open, you're still looking at less than full capacity. Where are these billions going to come from?" Well, here's the problem, Connor. You yourself are now making an assumption, right? One of the things that we have come to realize is that you can't make any firm assumptions beyond like 48 hours. Like the world has literally changes day to day here. And the context literally changes day to day. Like even I, as pessimistic as I'm becoming, and I said, I doubt Wonder Woman. Would I put $1,000 that Wonder Woman's going to move out of December? No. Listen, because the dynamic and how things evolve are changing so quickly day to day. I think at this point, there's no assuming anything, right? So you go off of, okay, do we assume everything's going to be like it is 4 months from now? Well, that's a dangerous assumption to make either way. To assume that things are going to be just like they are today is a dangerous assumption. To assume that everything's going to be 100% back to normal is clearly a dangerous assumption. But I think all you can do is look at things and say, we do things business as normal until we can't, right? Like we move forward, said Black Widow, with our plans for our November 9th release until it becomes clear and we get close enough that we realize we can't. Otherwise, you're just dooming your own business in a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you just got to keep moving forward. So at this point, you look forward to 2021 and you say, okay, we plan that we are going to be relatively back to normal come, February, March, or April of 2021 until we get close enough to realize that that's not the case. So if, and that's the big if, and we've always put this if in front of it, if we do get to a place like, say, come February, which is like November, December, which is like 120 days from now, 4 months from now, and there's a vaccine or whatever, we just better learned, we realize that, COVID can be out there, but we can do this, this, and this, and everybody's going to be safe in the theater or whatever, then yeah, they're going to do tons and tons and tons of business. Tons of business. Take that to the bank. Because there's going to be big movie after big movie after big movie. Tons of other supportive kind of screen filler theater movies that a lot of people are going to be interested in. You're going to have a general going public that has not really gone out to the movies regularly in a long time. It's going to be huge, but maybe it won't. But you can't operate on any of the assumptions right now. Like any assumption. You just move forward, do business until you get close enough to realize, well, we can't do that. And like I said, I'm not putting money that Wonder Woman's not coming out. I don't think it's going to come out in December, but I'm not willing to put money on it because just the situation changes too rapidly right now. So we'll have to wait and see. All right. Good observation, though, Connor. All right. Next up, Major Tom writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, I guess it's official. 2020 is a lost cause. This has to be the worst year for theatrical release movies ever. At least in a very long time. I've only seen 6 movies in theaters this year, and the best one, Empire Strikes Back, came out 40 years ago. Personally, I don't think Tenet was the right movie to get people back into theaters. I think it could have been Wonder Woman, but at this point, it no longer matters. Any reason to go back to theaters now is gone. 2021 needs to be better than this. I disagree. Rob, I've heard a few people recently saying this, kind of being what we all do, and I do this myself, being Monday morning quarterbacks, and saying that, well, it's just that Tenet wasn't the right movie to do it. I completely disagree. The problem is, whatever movie was the first, no matter what it was, Rob, it could have been Avengers Endgame Part 2. Whatever movie it was, be it Tenet or Wonder Woman or Black Widow, doesn't matter. Any movie that it was going to need other movies coming out later.
Yep.
It was about momentum. It was great that Tenet came out, made $300 million when it was the only movie in movie theaters in the midst of a pandemic, but it was only going to be able to do it if then it created that momentum that other movies, significant movies, were then able to come out and build on that momentum as they go. So if you had put out Wonder Woman 84, and nothing else was coming out till December or January or February, you would have seen the same results. Maybe a few dollars difference, but generally the same results. So I don't know, Rob, how would you address that? What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we needed Tenet to lead. It was the charge of the light brigade, sort of hoping that theaters would open and everybody would rally behind the film and everybody would be so eager to go. And then it would follow up with a movie 2 weeks later, and then a movie after that, and a movie after that. I mean, and they tried, they put out Unhinged with Russell Crowe, and then they tried with New Mutants and tried to get that out there. And Tenet was obviously the big draw. But the fact is, it doesn't matter what happened. People are just not all comfortable going back to the movies, especially in this country. And we haven't gotten rid of this pandemic. And I think Tenet, all things being equal, did better than I thought it was going to do, to be honest. And like you said, there was no momentum there. Yeah.
Because I
wish there was.
I still believe this, Rob. I still believe this, despite the fact that there's still a pandemic there, and despite all of that, I still believe, and I'll never be able to prove this one way or the other now, but I still believe that if Tenet had come out, and then like within 4 weeks, say a Wonder Woman came out, I believe you would have seen Wonder Woman then do better than Tenet did. I think you would have now seen, because you would have seen that people came out to the theaters, they would have come back, and now a few more people would have jumped on. Look, ultimately though, was it the right time? Don't know. Would that, if Wonder Woman had opened 4 weeks after Tenet or 3 weeks after Tenet, Would that have meant, oh, well, then everything would have been back to normal? Well, of course not. Of course not. Would it have improved the situation? Probably. But I mean, at this point now, we'll never know. And it is unfortunate for Tenet that it went from a great, bold move to put it out first to now it was a wasted effort. Now it was just a completely wasted effort, and that's unfortunate, but it was. History will look back at this release of Tenet, Rob, and say it was a completely wasted effort. And it's too bad. It's too bad. All right. Dante Alonso writes, hey, John, why don't more movie theaters shift their focus to snack sales at this time? Adapt to survive. My local Harkins Theater has been doing this for months, in-person plus online bundles. Chuck E. Cheese still sold and delivered pizzas when they couldn't host parties. There have been a number of people that brought that up, Dante. Here's the ultimate problem. And Rob, I think you've said something similar to this, but here's the ultimate problem. If Regal or a local AMC thought that they would make money, they've done the math and they thought, oh, this can be profitable for us. You know they'd be doing it. They'd be doing it. Here's the problem. I love movie butter. I take that movie butter and I put it on popcorn. Everybody else says they love movie popcorn. To me, it's about the butter. But let's be frank and let's be honest. As much as I have a Pavlovian response, as soon as I walk into a theater, my mouth starts watering and I start jonesing for some of that movie popcorn. The reality is this. If I'm sitting down and about to pop on Man of Steel, to watch Man of Steel at home right now, I'm not going to go and get in my car, drive 10-minute round trip to go pay for overpriced popcorn that I can then get and bring home. I'm not about to get in my car and drive twice the distance to a local movie theater to pay 3 times the price for some Reese's peanut butter cups when I can just walk to the 7-Eleven and get it for significantly cheaper. I don't mind doing that when I'm in the theater. When I'm in there, I don't mind that. As a part of my movie going experience, I don't mind paying a few extra shekels for some Reese's peanut butter cups or a big ungodly sized, Coke container or whatever. I don't mind that. But am I going to go out? Are people in general going to go out of the way saying, I got to go to the movie theater to pick up some M&Ms and pay $8 for them? And then you got to ask the question, Rob, it comes back again. For AMC or Regal, it's like, okay, so we're going to spend a couple $100 on utilities, on everything being up and running, the fridge is going, the freezer's operating, the cooker's on, the heat lamp's on, the staff that we have to have there, the janitorial service in there, even just to clean up after the staff and blah, blah, blah. Are we going to make enough money selling popcorn tonight for people willing to do that it's going to justify all that expense just to be operating? Probably not. So I would argue, Rob, me as somebody who defends the ridiculous cost of movie concessions, for me who loves movie concessions, I'm not going to go to a movie theater to pay for that popcorn or that soda there when I can just go to 7-Eleven if I wanted it to get it for 1/4 of the price. Yeah. And all that. And I'm the main ideal person who would be a consumer. I just don't think there's any money to be made there. What do you think?
I agree. I for all the reasons that you've stated. I mean, I can walk down to the corner drugstore and get anything I want. And the whole point of having movie popcorn is to take it in. Hopefully it's still hot, and the butter is still warm and you sit down in your seat and it's instant gratification. The movie starts and you start munching away. I'm not going to go to a movie theater, put on movie theater popcorn butter that's going to get cold and soggy on the way home. I'm just not going to do that. I will say this, though. If I could go get the bolognese that the ArcLight sells at the Hollywood ArcLight, I'd order it. If I lived close, I would order it at night if they had people deliver that food. But that's food. That's just not movie. That's not just movie popcorn. But I don't think it's going to work. I mean, that's the thing. They can't make their margins doing that. And who's going to go in and just walk into a movie theater? It would make me sad to walk into a movie theater, buy a box of my beloved hot tamales and walk out and not see a movie. Yeah. I wouldn't like my box of hot tamales if I did that. I would feel that I'm being betrayed somehow.
Yep. All right. Let's go. Let's move on here. And Anonymous here writes, hey, John, why there is no simple temporary agreement between the studios and theaters to put the movie in theaters and POVOD at the same time, because there's no benefit to the movie theaters at all to do that. Tenet can get the 350 to 400 million from the box office, but lets them take another 100 to 150 million from PVOD. It will benefit both of them. No, it won't. How on earth does that benefit the movie theaters? At all. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, that ensures that the movie theaters will make less money. And then that hurts them long term. No, that doesn't help. There's no benefit there at all for the movie theaters. Like, there's not one bit. They would not have made, for there to be something there, Rob, I don't know if you agree with me or disagree with me with this. So here's what I'm going to propose. You tell me if you agree or disagree. In order for you to be able to present to the movie theater, say this will be good for the movie theaters, you have to be able to tell them, hey, if we have Tenet in theaters and on PVOD at the same time, you'll make more money at the box office. Like, it's made 300 million right now. If we have this out on PVOD right now, you'll also get an extra $100 million at the box office. No, you wouldn't. Not at all. There's not one single solitary legitimate argument to be made that there's somehow this is a benefit to the movie theater. There's a plethora of lists about how it hurts the movie theaters, but there's no benefit there for the theaters at all. I don't know, Rob, am I overlooking something? Like, how do you see it?
No, I think you're absolutely right. There is no benefit to movie theaters. I mean, once something has moved over to PVOD, it loses all of its value to movie theaters, because why would people go see something in a theater that they can see at home? Like, it doesn't work concurrently. That's why you have to have those windows. That's why those windows, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, those windows are vital to the success of movie theaters, making the only place to see a movie is in a theater. That's the whole point. And if those windows go away entirely, movie theaters are eventually going to be driven out of town. They desperately need that exclusivity in order for them to be viable as a financial, as a money-making enterprise. Have to have it.
All right, last question we'll take with Rob here, because we've hit the 11:30 mark and he's got things he's got to do. But Fabian Vegas writes, hey, John, did you hear about the new mystery thriller My Son? Yes, I have, with James McAvoy, starring James McAvoy and Claire Foy. Apparently, McAvoy won't be given a script nor be told about the plot. No, he will be told about the plot. He'll have to do the detective work and improv in real time. What are your thoughts? Rob, I don't know if you've heard about this.
No, but I'm already intrigued.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's actually a remake. I think it's a remake of a French film, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a remake the original was made in this way too. So basically, the director will work with all the other cast. So James McAvoy's playing a guy whose son has gone missing, and he needs to travel to another city to see his ex-wife, who I guess in this case is going to be played by Claire Foy, to try to figure out where their son has gone. Now, all the other cast in the movie are going to have they're going to have full access to what the script is. They know what the story is. They know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But James McAvoy won't. He'll understand the basic structure. Like, okay, I get it. I'm a father. My son's gone missing. I have to go over to see Claire Foy because and I need to then go from there. But from that point on, even though all the other performers know what they're supposed to do, James McAvoy is going to have to improv. He doesn't know what he's supposed to say to the mother. He doesn't know what he's supposed to say to he doesn't know what the cop he's meeting with to report his missing son, if that's a scene in it, is going to say to him. And he's just going to have to react as he feels and thinks the character. This is like a night at the Groundlings. This is going to be like a night watching improv comedy. Now, if I were a producer or director, I'd never do this, because this just could go wrong in so many different ways. This could go wrong in so many different ways. But then again, it's not live. If you don't like what James McAvoy did, say, let's do it again, James. Do it again. But in an industry that it's very difficult to come up with something surprising and novel, this is surprising and novel. So I would never do it if I were a producer. I would never do this. As an audience member and a fan, am I intrigued by this, especially with performers of the caliber of a James McAvoy and a Claire Foy? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested. So I'm interested. Rob, you're just hearing about this for the first time. What do you think about this idea?
Well, let me tell you, I think it might work or it might not work. There was a movie that came out it was made in 2013. It was a science fiction movie called Coherence. Nicholas Brendan from Buffy the Vampire Slayer was in it. And the director, they'd only written like a 15-page outline of the whole story. And like the director would tell certain characters that are in a house, okay, you guys are going to do everything you can to prevent these people that want to come into the house from coming in. And then he told his actors that were outside the house, okay, you have to do or say anything you can to get the people that are in the house to let you in. And they would improv the scene. They would film the scene. And it's a really interesting Twilight Zone-esque science fiction film. But my problem with that is it's a mystery too. So you've got all these actors that know the secret to the mystery, and it's kind of like, are you allowing James McAvoy to really act, or is he playing more like a choose your own adventure thing? And how do you stay a character's got to be, you have to have a character decided upon. Like it would only work in my mind if the director has worked with James McAvoy and given James McAvoy all the backstory of the character. Like he would have to know everything he could know about, like, where did this character go to college? What was the first girl he ever kissed? What's his favorite movie? You know, you'd have to know all of that stuff so you couldn't just be some random dude, like a random actor, and be expected to respond, because that wouldn't be real, because a character is a fully realized person. You know, they've led their fictional life. And if you don't have that backstory, you have nothing to draw upon as an actor to create a character. So I think it would only work if James McAvoy had worked with the director and came up with this whole rich life that the character had, so the actor had something to play. Because he doesn't have dialogue to play.
I'm sure they'll give him all that. I'm sure they'll give him all the background and structure that he needs. But again, I wouldn't do it if I were a producer. There's just way too many things that could go wrong. But
plus,
I want to see it.
It's only, I'll watch it, but it's only a gimmick as far as production goes. My question is, what does the gimmick provide the audience? Because if the audience gets something unique, but really you as an audience shouldn't know about an actor's process. So if they improvise things, it's like they improvise comedy all the time. We see comedies and we don't know whether they improvise it or not, because all you see is what you get on the back end of it all. So I'm wondering, other than being a production gimmick, how does this benefit the audience that's going to watch the film, especially if it's a mystery?
And I mean, if you have a good actor like a Daniel Day-Lewis or whatever, you as an audience are already convinced that the character on screen is just responding to what's being said to them for the first time, right? So
yes,
it will, but still, even then, I am fascinated to see how this is going to turn out on screen. I'm fascinated by it. Anyway, Rob, I know you got things you got to run and do. Thanks again for being here today. But in the meantime, my friend, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
People can follow me on Twitter at BurnettRM, follow me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, and follow me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work. And we just released, we're running a film festival, but our poster contest went online today, and you can vote. There's 60 entries, and anybody can vote. Even if you had nothing to do with the poster contest, anybody can vote. Check those out. I put links on Twitter, and it's fun. There's a lot of really talented people out there, and I want to thank all the viewers that put their talents to bear and made these posters.
All right. Thanks a lot for being here, Rob, and we will talk to you again later, my friend. Have a good one.
All right.
All right, guys, that is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. We still got about 20 minutes here, so let's keep firing through your questions. Adam, UK supporter, tipped in $20. Thank you, Adam, for supporting the channel on that level, man. We appreciate that. Writes in, do you feel that Warner Media missed the boat with DC Universe? I understand that the suits have prioritized HBO Max, but the comics, full film library, and exciting exclusives could have been a worldwide hit. No, it couldn't have. We'll get to this in a second. Plus, a weekly DC John Campea show. Sign me up. Well, they kind of did a weekly John Campea clone show. They did something called DC Daily, right? which actually wasn't bad. And they had some very good people on there, some not so good people, but they had some very good people on there. And it's a neat idea for a show, and it was original content to them. I thought it was a mistake that they canceled it, but look, to quote Social Network, the movie, to paraphrase Social Network, the movie, if DC Universe could have been a worldwide hit, then it would have been a worldwide hit. You know, if you could have made Facebook, you would have made Facebook. If DC Universe could have been a worldwide hit, then it would have been a worldwide hit. But it was not. It was a little, listen, I remember thinking, I loved the idea of DC Universe when they first announced it, right? But even though I was excited about it, I said right from the beginning, this might be too niche. Like, it's too specific. I think to sustain like a big enough subscription base for original projects like Titans or Doom Patrol or whatever, it might be just too niche. And I think that's what they realized very quickly. They did not get the subscription numbers that they were hoping for, or that they thought maybe might have been possible. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm glad they tried it. I am. I applaud them for trying it. I think that was in an industry that far too often plays things far too safe. I will say that I, for one, appreciated that they really swung for the fences in doing something like that. And it was worth the effort. And it didn't work. It didn't pay off. Really having a service like HBO Max, and the moment they announced HBO Max, all of us were saying, the DC Universe stuff is done. They're going to fold it into HBO Max. It makes much more sense to have one service where we can go and get all of that content, right? Where we can go and get all of it. So, no, I don't think they missed the boat. I think they had an idea. It was a decent idea. They tried it. They gave it a very good effort. They put out some good content, and it only got so much response. Doesn't mean it was a bad idea to try. It just means it didn't quite work. And so, no, I don't think they missed the boat. I don't think it was going to be any bigger than it actually was. And it is what it is. And now we've got HBO Max, which I think, despite the fact that I think they botched their launch, HBO Max is going to be great, man. It's going to be great. And so, and it's already pretty fun. So there's that. Anyway, thanks for writing in, Adam. I really appreciate that, man. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, also, John, do you agree that theaters needed a crowd pleaser movie to get a bigger impact that was critically needed? A movie like Wonder Woman 84, people decided that they will not take the risk for confusing movie like Tenet needed multiple views. No, again, I disagree with that. I think in a pandemic, when only certain amounts of theaters were open at only certain capacity and no other big movie had come out for 6 months, I don't know that any other movie would have done much better than 300 million with no other supporting films around it. Nothing else to entice people into the theaters, right? So I think, listen, if Tenet had come out, and I stand by this, I mean, I can't prove it. I know I never will be able to prove it now, but I still believe that if Tenet had come out and then Wonder Woman had come out like 3 weeks later and then something had come a few weeks after that, I think we would all be singing a very different song. I think we'd be looking at Tenet and saying, Tenet, you know, thanks to Tenet being the first one out there, blah, blah, blah. But I honestly don't think launching Wonder Woman in its place instead would have done any better. If nothing else is going to open up after it to support it and to keep and build on that momentum, then it wouldn't have made a difference. I really don't. I think Christopher Nolan is the most exciting filmmaker in the world. I think that if any other name was going to get people out, I think that would have been it. And I honestly think, like Rob said, I agree with Rob. I think all things considered, I think all things considered, Tenet ain't done bad. $300 million in an industry that had no movies out for 6 months in a pandemic and all that kind of stuff, and $300 million, not bad. Obviously disappointing, but given the circumstances, not terrible. But it needed more to come out after it, and it didn't get it. So I don't think Wonder Woman would have done much better. If Wonder Woman had come out and all the other major movies had moved, we would have been in the exact same place right now. I really do think that. Wonder Woman might have made a few extra shekels, but it wouldn't have changed anything overall. All right, Mason writes, Morning, John and Rob. If all of 2021 dates stay the same, what comic book movie are you looking forward to the most? I can't even remember. I honestly, at this point, I can't even remember what's coming out in 2021 at this point. Mine, believe it or not, is Venom 2. I am super excited for Venom 2 because I had a lot of fun with the first Venom. I had an unexpected amount of fun with the first Venom. I really did. I think the tease of will or won't Spider-Man will bring fans to the theaters in flocks. I disagree. You're not going to get a million extra people going to the theaters just to see if Spider-Man appears in it. That's not going to make a difference. But guess what? They made a Venom movie without Spider-Man, and it was a lot of fun, and it made over $800 million. I never thought it would make... I always knew that Venom would be successful. I never thought Venom would be that successful. I didn't think it would get to 800 million. I said publicly I didn't think it would get to 800 million. And it did. I mean, and it didn't need Spider-Man or the wonder of Spider-Man. That's not what brought people out. But honestly, right now, I can't even remember what films are coming out in 2021. Everything's moved around so much. I would honestly have to have a list in front of me of what are the comic book movies coming out in 2021 for me to make the joke, because it ain't going to be Batman, because now that's coming out in 2022. But I am very much, Mason, looking forward to Venom 2. All right, Tobias writes, Tobias is never nude writes, 1 of 2. If other countries continue to improve their situation regarding the pandemic, is there any reality likely where films are just released theatrically internationally and just not in America? I know Tenet kind of did, but I mean, if international markets continue, well, Tenet really didn't, but it continued to recover better / faster down the line. Living outside of America, it's very frustrating waiting for all these films when we're doing okay. I get it. I do. It's just frustrating. It's like the whole class getting detention because of one person misbehaving. Oh, I get it. Believe me. I feel like every time I talk to a movie fan who doesn't live in the United States, I feel like I need to apologize first. By the way, sorry that the country I live in is ruining everything for everybody else. Sorry. I do. I feel like the first thing I should do is apologize. No, listen. Fact of the matter is, United States is the biggest movie market in the world. It's not just the biggest movie market in the world. It is also the trend-setting, culture-shaping market, right? Actually, specifically, one of the reasons why New York theaters have been so important and LA theaters have been so important isn't just because of how many people go to the movies there. It's that LA and New York is where all the tastemakers live, right? It's where all of the influencers live, is LA and New York. And without the tastemakers, without the influencers, without all that kind of stuff, it also makes it very challenging. So you're looking at huge amounts of box office, not to mention a lot of the trends, and it becomes very problematic. Now, it's one thing for Tenet to open a couple of weeks before it opens in North America. That's fine. But I don't think you're going to see at least, listen, if 6 more months pass and everywhere else in the world is doing great and it's just America that is still lagging behind everybody and being stupid, well, maybe at that point the studios just go, look, F it. We got to start putting movies out other places. But I think it's going to take like another 6 months of that to be the case. So I don't think they're going to do it. It might become an option later, though. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Tobias. Wyatt Bender writes, hey, John and Rob, longtime fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much, Wyatt. I am an old man stuck in a millennial's body because I love classic films and classic television, anything from the 50s to the 90s. Which classic film or classic show is your favorite? With Rob, it's Star Trek. Yeah, well, with Rob, it's obviously Star Trek. I've got a couple that I'm a sucker for because I actually grew up in an era where there was a lot of older stuff was syndicated on TV, and my mom would watch a lot of that stuff, right? So like one of the things that I'm a sucker for legal dramas. So like the old Perry Mason shows. I was a sucker for the old Perry Mason shows, right? So I was totally down with that. I liked MASH. which is, I mean, not 50s or anything like that, but that was an older as well. When you go back to classic cinema, I mean, look, I am still to this day a major sucker for Ben-Hur, the Charlton Heston kind of class, 10 Commandments, Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, yeah, we talk about that classic stuff all the time, but when it comes to that old classic television, I'll tell you what, I mean, Perry Mason was pretty much one that I would watch all the time. And so why I checked out the HBO show, and I only watched like 3 episodes of the HBO Perry Mason, the recent one. I have not liked it. I've had some people saying that I should keep going with it because it gets better, but I really didn't like the first 3 episodes, but that's where I'm at right now. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Wyatt. Dan Ketchum writes, I have a theory about Black Adam. Since Black Adam was born 5,000 years ago, the studio's trying to create a balance by releasing the movie 5,000 years from now. I know it gets frustrating. Let me see if I can find this. I had somebody send me this great picture. Somebody sent this into our Patreon Facebook group. Our Patreon Facebook group is where I got this from. And because our Patreon members, we have a Facebook group, and sometimes our Patreon members will jump in there and drop some funny pictures. Somebody put this out. Now, it's not Black Adam, but it's kind of in the same situation. They said, they put in this picture of Daniel Craig at the No Time to Die premiere, which is, yep, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's another New Mutant situation. I can't remember which of our Patreon supporters put this up in our Facebook group, but I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty damn funny. Anyway, yes, 5,000 years from now, Dan. All right, Carolina 29593 writes, what's up, John and Rob? Rob's not here anymore, obviously. I have a simple question for y'all. Should I sell my stock in AMC theaters? Thank you. Yes. Yep. And here's why. Because I do believe if they can survive until the movies start coming out again, I think ultimately AMC will be fine. But I also believe this, between now and when the movies come out, their stock is going to continue to drop. Now, I am no financial expert. Don't take what I'm saying, whatever. But personally, I would sell that stock because you'll be able to buy it again later for cheaper. I would sell what you've got now because I only see their stock continuing to drop. Their stock's going to drop, I believe. Again, I'm no financial expert, but so at the very worst, you could sell it now and buy it again later for cheaper than what you sold it for, and then buy it again in time for when the stock might start going up again. But I would sell the stock. That's just me. All right, Josh Valentine writes, I manage a small one-screen theater. Cool, man. And we are showing Nightmare Before Christmas this month. Just got lobby posters from Disney, and there were Soul posters included. They are still sending out marketing materials for this movie. Interested to see if it's fate. I mean, yeah, listen, keep in mind, Disney just doubled down as early as last week saying we are keeping Soul as a theatrical release, and we are keeping that November 20th release date. I think it's the 20th of November. I know it's November. I think it's the 20th of November. Now, of course, that was before Regal said they were going to be closing their theaters down. So the second biggest movie chain is not going to be operating when Disney says they're going to put out Soul. But as of right now, the official word is, and the official line is that Soul is still coming out November 20th. I have serious doubts that it will keep that date, but as of right now, that's the official line. So let's see what happens there, Josh. And that's so awesome that you work in like one of them single screen theaters. I think that's great, man. All right, Alan Horn's Horn writes, this Batman delay is just a Riddler joke, right? Oh man, it feels like everything about being a movie fan in 2020 feels like there's some big cosmic joke. Like there's some big cosmic joke being played on movie fans. Again, obviously, fully cognizant that there are much, much bigger problems outside of the world of movies, that the whole COVID situation. But here on this show, we just talking about in our little box. We're just talking about in our little box. But it feels like one big cosmic joke for movie fans. So, yep, it does feel like a Riddler joke, Alan. Casey McNatt writes, hey, John, I hope you and Rob are doing well today. I am doing well today. Thank you very much. I just have to wonder, after this whole pandemic is over and done with, do you feel like movies will push their movies up at all, or do you feel like they will keep the dates they pushed their movies back to? Here's the thing. back a little while ago, I suggested that, hey, listen, if Tenet comes out and then Wonder Woman comes out and whatever's able to come out and you see it able to do okay, maybe you'll see some films move up and maybe come back to some original release dates. The problem now, though, now that we're already in October, is that the release schedules come February, March, April, May, they're already going to be pretty packed. And I just don't know if there's ever going to be any wiggle room. Like between July and November, lots of open space. If any of the movies wanted to come back and move forward, there was lots of open territory, lots of free real estate. But now as we get into 2021, that open real estate isn't there. So I don't know, even if they wanted to move their films around, I don't know that they're going to have the room to do it. So at least not in any big scale. Maybe one or two films can do it, but I just don't know that there's going to be the release dates available that aren't going to be overcrowded already in order to do that. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Next up, we've got Simon Blakemore, who writes, "Hey, John, back in your AMC days, you interviewed Robert De Niro." Yes, I did. "And when you finished the interview, Robert De Niro offered you a handshake and you left him hanging. I was wondering, did you get a horse head at the bottom of your bed?" I don't know if I can still find this. I'm going to see if I can find it. I doubt I'm going to be able to find it. Nope, I cannot find it. But I will show you a thing of it. So basically speaking, so I went to Las Vegas, right? And I got to sit down with a bunch of icons. I mean, it was one of the, I kid you not, highlights of my career. That is me sitting down with Michael Douglas, Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, and Kevin Kline. Four of the greats. And I'm sitting there talking with them. Now, I don't have the picture right in front of me. I wish I did. But at the end, when I ended the interview, some of you have seen this picture. It is I will look up the picture and I will show it to you tomorrow. But I got up and I said, it was a great conversation I had with them. And then when my time was done, I got up and I thanked them for it. And I turned my back and I walked out. I sent the footage to Dennis Zen, who was doing the editing for it. And it was Dennis who then texted me later and said, look, I don't want to freak you out or anything, but did you realize you left Robert De Niro hanging? I'm like, what are you talking about? And he sends me this still picture of Robert De Niro practically standing up, reaching out his hand to me to shake my hand, and my back is to it and I'm walking out. It is the biggest regret, the most embarrassed I have ever been about anything. It's like, oh my God, I left Robert De Niro hanging. Oh my God. Like it was one of the most embarrassing, horrific things I had ever seen. Again, I don't have the picture in front of me right now. When I find the picture, I'll show it to you tomorrow. Some of you have already seen it, but yeah, that was not my best day, ladies and gentlemen. Not my best day. All right, next up. We've got Bojax writes, "Hey, John, I wasn't able to catch Open Mic live on Saturday, so I don't know if you answered a question I had on if Joss Whedon's name should replace Zack Snyder's name as a director on the theatrical version of Justice League, since Zack wants nothing to do with that one." Basically, he can't. That's a Directors Guild of America thing, and we did go over that on Saturday's Open Mic. That's a Directors Guild of America decision, and they have certain rules that dictate what parts, when can one director's name appear over another director's name and when it can't. So they have the rules. It's kind of like how the WGA, they have the final authority when it comes to it. They have the final word on whose name can appear as a writer on a movie. The DGA, according to their collective bargaining agreement, they get final say. If it's brought to them, they get final say about whose name appears and doesn't appear on a screen. I can tell you this right now, though. If a director doesn't want their name on a movie, then their name can be taken off a movie. There are repercussions of that, because if you're not the director of credit, then you lose out on some benefits whether it's financial, certain money you're entitled to, whatever. But yeah, ultimately it's a DGA thing. But I will put up, I tried to put up last night, I had problems with it. I will put up, again, I explained yesterday the technical problems that we had with YouTube shifting it to a members only thing, and we don't even have members. Anyway, I will get that up. I tried to get it up last night. I couldn't. I will get that up in the next day or two. That was Saturday's open mic. I will get that back up though. Thanks for following up, Bojax. TJ Thomas from KC writes, "Hey, John. So with A-List, AMC let people with theaters, let me try this again. So with A-List, AMC let people with theaters open restart their subscription. I didn't realize that. But with everything being pushed back, I am regretting doing so and thinking I may have to cancel just because I am not using it. Can't even use it for legacy showings." Yeah, that's why I remember somebody asked me a while ago, if AMC gives you the option to restart your thing, because my A-List has been frozen. Thankfully, it's been frozen. So I believe it was a while ago, somebody asked me, "Hey, John, if AMC offered you the option to unfreeze it now to go see some of these movies, would you?" And I'm like, no, I would not right now, because I just don't know. And so I would rather just keep it frozen till I know I'm going to be going back to the movies regularly, because right now I didn't know. What I would do if I were you, TJ, because if you cancel, I think you have to wait, like, I could be wrong about this, but I think you have to wait like a year before they let you sign up for it again. So if I were you and I were worried about that, I would contact customer support and I would ask them if it was possible just to freeze your membership again. It was probably a mistake to unfreeze it right now, but you did. So I would call them, see if just freezing it again right now was an option. Because then if it's just frozen, you're not paying for it. So see if that's an option to you. It may not be, but I would see if that's an option. Good luck with that, man. I hope you're able to get some success with that, TJ. All right, Stubble McShave writes, "It's a bit early to ask this question, but why not? Over under 50% the Summer Olympics gets moved. If so, do you think they'll have both Summer and Winter Olympics in 2022, or will they move one of them to 2023 or cancel the Summer Olympics since a new one comes in 2024? I believe that the Olympics are going to happen. I believe, I mean, I can't guarantee that, obviously. I don't know for sure, but I believe very much that the Olympics will happen in 2021. I do believe they're going to happen. So I hope they do, but I really think they will as well. So there's that. All right, next up, James Argento writes, "AMC and Cinemark might be staying open to help them get a government bailout in January once the new Congress is set. Best case for theaters is to repeat what the auto industry did in 2008 when they got bailed out and recovered." Well, I don't see how. Here's the problem. Staying open doesn't increase their chances of getting the bailout. One might make the argument that closing might increase the chances of getting a bailout. Regal shutting down does not hurt their chances of the industry getting a bailout at all. Showing the government that we are doing everything in our power to survive, and that means even closing our doors, because that's what we've got to do to survive right now. I think, if anything, that makes your case. So I don't know that keeping open either helps or hurts their case, to be honest with you, but we'll see what happens. All right, next up, Kyle Schroeder writes, and we just got time for one or two more here, guys. Kyle Schroeder writes, "One problem with presenting a Batman in the context of our real world, especially nowadays, is that if Bruce Wayne really wanted to eliminate crime, he would give away all of his billions to funding education and social services in Gotham's poverty sector." Well, yes and no, but remember, historically, in the comics and stories, Bruce Wayne does do a lot of that. He runs massive charities and gives huge amounts of money to different programs like that. Ultimately, studies have shown, hey, you want to improve an area? Create education, create programs, create jobs, crime goes down. Yay! It's been proven. Scientifically, it's been proven. Is Gotham, though, is a fictitious place, right? Gotham is like in real bad straits. And maybe it would be even worse if it wasn't for all the charitable work that Bruce Wayne and the Wayne Foundation does. Maybe it'd be even worse. But maybe Gotham is just in such rough shape that even with all that, it only keeps at a certain level, that still needs a Batman. Just saying. All right, Kyle Short also writes, vigilantism just breeds more crime, and if Batman kills, like in Batman versus Superman, then he's no better than a Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, listen, we are talking about comic books. All right, we're talking about comic books. Batman killing, I have no problem with Batman killing in the movies. If it's always, in the terms of self-defense. Even in the comic books, this is always for people who try to argue Batman would never kill, there's a particular issue that isn't all that old in the comics that just gives people fits. And it's a conversation that happens between Bruce Wayne and at the time, Jason Todd Robin. And basically Jason Todd Robin's like, let's go get those guys. And Batman's like, we don't cross that line. We don't become the criminals. We don't kill people. And to which Jason, and I've shown this page from the comic book on the screen. Jason Todd says to Batman, but you kill people. And he says, only in self-defense. Only in self-defense. Like if we're in combat and it's my life or theirs, yeah, self-defense, I'll kill somebody. So yes, in the comic books, Batman will kill. There are instances of the comic books also where he says, I would never, ever, ever kill no matter what, but there are precedents in the comic book that says he would. So I've got no problem with the fact that, that Batman, when engaged in combat, and he may die, and in order to prevail, might mean this guy got to die. Hey, in order to win, I got to throw this guy off the roof. Bye. It's funny. I say that as a pacifist, but yeah, I got no problem with that. All right. Next up, Tess, Tickle writes, John, I agree with your points on why AMC should stay open, and I disagree it's a stupid decision. And quote Warren Buffett, be fearful when people are greedy. Be greedy when people are fearful. Business 101, my friend. New CEO did A-list and an entire industry copied it. Thoughts? No, the AMC, the CEO did not do A-list. A-list was already, I've told this story many times. A-list was something that they were already laying the groundwork and prepping and doing their studies for and getting ready to develop and launch years before they did it. As a matter of fact, I was at AMC still. I was still working at AMC as they were doing the groundwork for A-list. Like AMC is a company that very frustratingly, but also probably pretty smartly moves extremely slow. And they were doing their research and laying groundwork years before AMC launched. Years before it launched. Now listen, is Regal doing the smarter thing than AMC by closing down to conserve their finances to ensure that they survive? Yes, they're making the better decision than AMC is. But, as I said, it's not the most brain-dead decision because there are arguments to be made for it. Maybe they think they can get enough business that was going to Regal that are coming to them that might help them. I don't even think that's enough business. But the other thing, like I said earlier today, was that when you look at how much energy, resources, and just straight up money it costs to restart everything and hire all the staff back and retrain all staff and get everything up and running again, that maybe it's smarter just to keep it open than to go through all that expense. That will depend on how long this drought lasts. So there are some arguments for it, but ultimately I still think it's pretty dumb. They've got to be able to survive, and AMC is in more financial trouble than any of the theaters right now. But hey, listen, I want them to succeed. I want them to survive. I hope it works out. I just think they would have put themselves in a better position to succeed had they just closed the doors and conserved their resources. All right. Thomas, and this will be the last question we take today, guys. We've already gone overtime. Thomas writes, I was wondering what you thought of Ted Lasso. I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, despite some of it being a bit inaccurate as an English football fan. I know nothing about English football, so I don't care. Also, I was shocked that Cineworld decided to shut down. It was quite safe in the 2 times I went there. Yeah, remember, Cineworld and Regal didn't shut down because it wasn't safe. They shut down because there's no new movies coming out. Like, once James Bond No Time to Die moved, I mean, that was pretty much it. Unless you have big tentpole movies coming out to get the attention to the movie theaters and get people into the movie theaters, then there's just no point in being open. There's just no point. It literally was costing them more money being open than it is to be closed. They are going to lose less money being closed than they were being open. I mean, that's just, unfortunately, that's just the situation. As far as Ted Lasso goes, man, I got to tell you, I loved it. I really did. The first episode, I was like, it feels a little shtickish. Like Jason Sudeikis just feels like a Saturday Night Live character, to be honest. It's all right. It's all right. But I pushed through because they're short episodes. Once I watched the second episode, I was hooked. I was like, oh my God, this show is so charming and so endearing. And I love the characters, and I just adored it. And I'm not a soccer fan at all, but I adored it. I really did. If you guys haven't checked out Ted Lasso, it's on Apple TV Plus. And if you have Apple TV Plus, go give it a watch. I think you'll be glad that you did. It's short episodes, short season, but I'm telling you, after that first episode, I got totally charmed by it. I really did. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. Listen, there were just a small handful of questions still left to go from Aaron McDonough, Joe P., Kyle Schroeder, and just one or two others. Don't worry, on tomorrow's show, we will start off the live questions part of the show by getting to your questions first. You sent it in. It's going to get answered properly on the show, so just keep your eyes open for that. All right, guys. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here. Thank you to all of you guys for making this show a part of your day. We're incredibly honored that you did. A special thank you to all you guys who sent in the live questions for two reasons. Number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. Number two, you supported the channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you very, very much for that. Guys, keep your eyes open for my social media a little bit later today. I've got not mind-blowingly exciting news, but for me, kind of exciting news about my little documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story, that I'm going to be posting on my social media a little bit later today. Keep your eyes open for that. Guys, don't forget, once again, make sure, hey, if you like the show, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel, stay up to date. Go on down and click the thumbs up on this video. Guys, thanks a lot for being here. Please do the four main things. Stay smart, stay safe. Take care of yourselves, and guys, please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.